All right, ready to dive deep. We're tackling Peter Thiel's 0 to 1 today.
Yeah, it's a good one. A real classic for anyone who wants to think differently about building companies.
We've got our excerpts, notes, ready to unpack some serious wisdom. What always strikes me about Thiel is how he really pushes that contrarian mindset.
Absolutely. He wants us to question everything, like really challenge those assumptions we have about business, innovation, the whole shebang.
It's like every time I read something that goes against the grain, it's like a jolt to the system. Like, wait a minute, maybe there's another way to look at this. Thiel calls it asking the contrarian question.
Right. And it's such a powerful question. What important truth do very few people agree with you on?
And for Thiel, that truth is, get this, technology, not globalization, is the key to a brighter future.
And that's where things get really interesting because, the common belief is that globalization, spreading existing resources, wealth, all that is the path to progress.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes sense on the surface.
Right, but Thiel flips the script. He's like, no, true progress comes from creating something new. Those 0 to 1 leaps in technology that unlock, like, completely new possibilities.
Like instead of just building a faster horse and cart, you invent the automobile.
Exactly. That's the kind of jump we're talking about. And for anyone listening who's thinking about starting a company, Thiel would say, focus on that novel technology.
It's more important than just like optimizing global supply chains or something.
Exactly. He uses his experiences during the dot-com boom to really drive this point home. Like he talks about the crazy optimism of 1999.
Everyone chasing those quick riches?
Right. But then in 2000, after the bubble burst, there was this surprising clarity.
People started asking the tough questions.
Yeah, like, are we building something truly valuable here? Or are we just caught up in the hype?
He even tells that crazy story about a PayPal engineer, right?
Yeah.
The one who was going to build a bomb to take out their competition, X.com.
Yeah, wild times. But it shows how intense it was. And what's interesting is that Thiel actually sees that kind of cutthroat competition as a negative in the long run.
Really? But isn't competition supposed to be good? Doesn't it push companies to innovate, to improve?
That's the traditional view, but Thiel challenges that. He's like, no, the goal should be market dominance, becoming a monopoly.
Wait, monopolies? Isn't that like the opposite of what we're taught? Aren't monopolies bad for consumers?
That's the common perception for sure. But Thiel makes a distinction between what he calls creative monopolies and the traditional negative kind.
So what's a creative monopoly then?
It's not about just controlling an existing market. It's about creating entirely new categories of abundance.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this. So like Google and search.
Exactly. Or Apple and the iPhone,
Yeah.
they created something so new, so valuable that it didn't just dominate a market, it fundamentally changed how we live.
So not all monopolies are created equal. But how do you actually go about creating one of these good monopolies?
Well, Thiel uses this great example. He says, imagine you open the only British food restaurant in Palo Alto.
Okay, niche market, but I get it.
Right, so you might think, aha, monopoly. But have you really considered the bigger market?
You're competing with all restaurants, not just British ones.
Exactly. So are you just another restaurant in a sea of restaurants, or are you creating a whole new category? That's the key question.
So to build a creative monopoly, you need to find a problem that nobody else is solving, come up with a radically innovative solution, and make sure that solution serves a market big enough to, well, dominate.
Exactly. And this is where a lot of companies stumble. They think too small, or they try to be everything to everyone.
They lose sight of that 0 to 1 principle.
Right. And critically, you have to be in it for the long game. Thiel isn't interested in flash-in-the-pan successes. He wants to see companies that create lasting value, and that requires a different kind of thinking.
It's about building something that endures, something that can weather the storms.
Exactly. And that brings us to what Thiel calls the 4 keys to building a durable business. Proprietary technology, network effects, economies of scale, and branding.
Okay, let's break those down. Starting with proprietary technology. What does that even mean?
Think of it like this. Imagine you've invented a revolutionary new material. It's lighter than steel, but 10 times stronger.
Okay, that's impressive.
Right. That's proprietary technology. It's something unique, something difficult to replicate, and it gives you a massive advantage.
It's like having a secret weapon that nobody else can get their hands on.
Exactly. It's what allows you to do things that others can't, to create products and services that are truly differentiated.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all fits together. So we've got proprietary technology, that's like having the secret sauce. But what about these network effects? That sounds a bit more abstract.
It's actually pretty intuitive. Think about a social network like Facebook. The more people who use it, the more valuable it becomes to each individual user.
Right, yeah, because you have more people to connect with, share with, all that.
Exactly. That's the power of network effects. The more people use your product or service, the more valuable it becomes for everyone in the network. It creates this powerful flywheel effect.
Ah, I see. It's like a snowball effect, but with users and value instead of snow.
Mm.
And then there's economies of scale. I feel like we hear that term thrown around a lot, but what does it actually mean in the context of building a lasting business?
Economies of scale are all about efficiency. It's the idea that as your company grows, you can often produce or deliver your product or service at a lower cost per unit.
So bigger can actually be better, at least when it comes to cost efficiency.
Exactly. It's about finding those efficiencies that come with scale. Imagine you're a manufacturer. With larger facilities and streamlined processes, you can produce more goods with the same amount of overhead.
Meaning each individual unit becomes cheaper to make.
Precisely. That's the beauty of economies of scale.
Okay, so we've got proprietary technology, network effects, economies of scale.
Mm-hmm.
That leaves us with branding.
Ah, yes, branding. It's more than just a logo or a slogan. It's about building a strong identity that resonates with your target audience.
It's the feeling people get when they interact with your company, your product.
Absolutely. It's about the emotions, the values, the perceptions that people associate with your brand. Think about Apple. People don't just buy their products, they buy into a lifestyle, an ethos. That's the power of a strong brand.
It's like the difference between a generic cola and a Coca-Cola. One is just a drink, the other is an experience.
Exactly. And that's what you're striving for when you build a brand. You want to create something that people connect with on an emotional level, something that they feel is a reflection of their own values and aspirations.
So we've got these 4 keys to durability. Got it. But how do we actually find that secret that will set our business apart? That's the million-dollar question.
Well, Thiel believes that we live in a world that's increasingly skeptical of secrets, you know? We're just bombarded with information data coming at us from all sides.
It's easy to think that everything worth knowing is already out there.
Right, like what's left to discover. But Thiel would argue that's just not true. There are still secrets to be found. Hidden truths that can unlock, like, extraordinary opportunities.
It's like that saying, the best place to hide something is in plain sight.
Exactly. It's about looking at the familiar in a new way, questioning those assumptions that everyone else takes for granted.
This reminds me of that story he tells about John Reber, the school teacher, with this crazy plan to, reshape the entire San Francisco Bay.
Oh yeah, John Reber, what a character.
His vision was, to put it mildly, ambitious.
Ambitious, try audacious. He wanted to build a massive freshwater lake right in the middle of the Bay Area.
It sounds insane, but when you really think about it,
It was a bold vision, and while it ultimately failed, I think his story highlights something important. We've become too quick to dismiss those big, bold ideas.
we settle for incremental improvements instead of going after those, radical visions.
Exactly. We've lost that sense of wonder, that belief that anything is possible.
So how do we break free from that incremental mindset? How do we start uncovering those game-changing secrets? Thiel talks about looking for things people aren't allowed to talk about, right?
That's one way to think about it. He encourages us to question conventional wisdom, to look for contradictions, to pay attention to areas where people are afraid to challenge the status quo.
It's like those unspoken rules, those unquestioned assumptions.
Exactly. Where are the sacred cows that nobody wants to tip over? That's often where you'll find the most valuable secrets.
It's about challenging the comfortable, the accepted.
Exactly. And that's never easy. But if you're serious about building something truly groundbreaking, you have to be willing to go against the grain, to challenge the status quo. No pain, no gain, right?
Right. So we've got our secret. We're thinking big, challenging assumptions. But then there's the whole question of execution. And Thiel is pretty adamant about the importance of the team. He has this line, a startup messed up at its foundation cannot be fixed.
Yeah, that's a powerful statement. And it's true. You can have the best idea in the world, but if you don't have the right people to execute it, you're dead in the water.
It's all about the people.
It really is. And Thiel compares choosing a co-founder to getting married, which, when you think about it, it's a pretty accurate analogy.
It's a huge commitment.
Huge. You're entering into a long-term relationship with these individuals. You're going to be spending a lot of time together working on something that's incredibly challenging and demanding.
So you better choose wisely.
Exactly. You need to make sure you're aligned on your vision, your values, your work ethic. Because if you're not, it's going to be a really bumpy ride.
It's like assembling a team of superheroes, each with their own unique powers.
I like that analogy. You need that diversity of skills and perspectives, but they also have to be able to work together effectively towards a common goal.
So you've got your dream team assembled, you're all on the same page, ready to take on the world. But even with the best team and a killer product, you still need to get that product into the hands of customers.
Distribution, right.
Exactly. And Thiel would say that's often the hardest part. He's pretty clear that great products don't just sell themselves.
Yeah, he really pushes back against that Silicon Valley myth. It's easy to fall into that trap of thinking if we build it, they will come, but it's rarely that simple.
So how do you find the right distribution strategy? It seems like there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
You're right, there isn't. Thiel talks about different distribution strategies, everything from complex sales to personal sales to viral marketing.
And each one has its own strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. The key is to deeply understand your customer, understand their needs, their behaviors, and then figure out the most effective way to reach them.
He also tells that funny story about hiring Scotty from Star Trek to promote PayPal in the early days.
Yeah, that was a bit of a marketing misstep, but it just goes to show that even brilliant people make mistakes.
So true. It's all about experimenting, learning, and adapting.
Exactly. And being willing to laugh at yourself along the way.
So we've talked about the importance of secrets, building a strong team, finding the right distribution strategy. But even with all of that, there's still this element of like navigating uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
Building a company is not always smooth sailing. And Thiel uses the clean tech bubble as a cautionary tale. Why focus on that, especially after all this talk about innovation and progress?
Yeah, the clean tech boom and bust, it's a good reminder that good intentions aren't enough. A lot of those clean tech companies, they didn't fail because they were working on unimportant problems.
Yeah, it's not like climate change isn't a real thing.
Exactly. It's that they stumbled on some pretty fundamental business principles. They got caught up in the hype, overpromised and underdelivered.
It's easy to get swept up in the excitement, especially when you're passionate about something.
Totally. And that's what Thiel calls indefinite optimism, believing in a rosy future without actually having a clear plan for how to get there.
So how do you avoid falling into that trap? How do you make sure that your business, whether it's clean tech or something else entirely, is built on solid ground?
Well, Thiel provides a framework for evaluating any business idea. He boils it down to 7 crucial questions.
7 questions. Okay, I'm listening.
He calls them the 7 questions that every business must answer. And they cover everything from engineering and timing to distribution and, that all-important question of whether you have a real defensible secret.
Okay, so it's like a checklist for success.
In a way, yeah. But they're not easy questions. They're designed to make you really think deeply about your business, to challenge your assumptions.
Give me an example.
Okay, so the engineering question. Thiel asks, can you create breakthrough technology, or are you just making incremental improvements?
So are you moving the needle or just tinkering around the edges?
Exactly. And then there's the timing question. Is now the right moment to start this particular business, or is the market not ready?
Timing is everything, right?
It really is. And then, of course, there's the people question. Do you have the right team to actually make this happen?
Thiel's point about how a startup messed up at its foundation can't be fixed.
It's so true. The team you choose, it's make or break.
Okay, so we've got engineering, timing, team. What are the other questions?
Well, there's the monopoly question. Are you aiming for that creative monopoly?
Creating something so unique and valuable that it gives you a real competitive edge.
Right. And then there are the questions about distribution and durability.
Distribution, that's getting your product or service into the hands of customers.
Right, exactly. Can you reach your target market effectively? And then durability. Will your market position still be defensible 10, 20 years down the line?
So it's about playing the long game, thinking about the future.
Exactly. You can't just be focused on the here and now. You have to have a vision for the future and a plan for how to get there. And I think that's what separates the companies that last from the ones that fizzle out.
He uses Tesla as an example of a company that got a lot of these things right. What was it about Tesla that made them different from those companies that got caught in that clean tech bubble?
I think Tesla had that bold vision right from the start. They wanted to make electric cars that weren't just good for the environment. They were desirable.
So they were cool.
Exactly. They were high-performing, stylish, and they really leaned into that proprietary technology.
Constantly innovating. pushing the boundaries of what was possible with battery technology, powertrain technology.
Exactly. They understood the importance of timing, too. They entered the market when consumer interest in electric vehicles was starting to take off,
Mhm.
and they built a strong brand. Tesla became synonymous with, like, the cutting edge of the electric vehicle space.
It's fascinating how we contrast that with companies that were just trying to, like, ride the wave of clean tech hype without really having that solid foundation. It seems like there's this real art to, recognizing a genuine opportunity and then turning that opportunity into a lasting business.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's where Thiel's insights about founders, they become so valuable. He talks about how successful founders often share these certain traits. They're contrarian, they're willing to challenge those assumptions that everyone else takes for granted, and they have this really strong sense of mission.
He even says that 4 of the 6 PayPal founders built bombs in high school.
Yeah, I'm not sure bomb making is a prerequisite for success, but it definitely speaks to a certain personality type.
Right.
But in all seriousness, I think Thiel's point is that the best founders, they often come from unconventional backgrounds. They're not afraid to take risks, they're willing to experiment, and they learn from their mistakes.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into 0 to 1,
Yeah.
I'm left with a sense of, like, both excitement and a healthy dose of realism. It's exciting to think about all the possibilities that are out there, but it's also clear that building a company that matters, it's hard work. It takes more than just a good idea. It takes careful planning, a willingness to challenge the status quo, and a whole lot of grit and determination. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Thiel's book, it's not a magic formula for success, but it's a powerful toolkit, for
Mhm.
anyone who wants to build a company that can not only survive, but actually thrive in this crazy, ever-changing world. And I think that's what's so valuable about it.
It's a call to action, a call to think bigger, to embrace risk, and to focus on creating lasting value. And he leaves us with this thought-provoking concept of the singularity.
Oh yeah, the singularity. It's a mind bender for
Mhm.
sure.
This future where technology is advancing so rapidly that it's going to reshape everything we know about what it means to be human.
It's a trip, but I think for Thiel, it's not really about like predicting the future. It's more about reminding us that the choices we make today, the businesses we build, the technologies we develop, they all have an impact.
They shape the world of tomorrow.
Exactly. It's a call to step into the arena, to embrace the unknown and help create the future we want to see.
So to everyone listening, the challenge has been issued. What will you create?